Hi there. In this video I'm going to talk to you about the architecture of the soulscape. So the soulscape, as I perceive it, is it's like our interior landscape, right? I have a soulscape, you have a soulscape. They all join up together to form the soulscape. In a sense, this is not a new idea. This is something that's been around since we've been around, and there have been many attempts to articulate what this substructure to reality is, what it could look like, what it could feel like. And it's really been the driver behind nearly all of my artwork. So you might recognize there are certain figments of this in an artwork you might own, or you'll see it in my paintings. And what I want to do with this is not really explain my artwork, but it's really to give you a feel that there's some kind of map that joins all of this up. There's a serious level of consideration and thought that's gone into how I construct my work and what it can mean to you, and also ultimately what it means for us to use our imaginations and to use our creativity on behalf of ourselves and on behalf of everyone else. Hence the practice of soulscaping. So this is the way I see things. It might not be academically absolutely precise. I've tried to stay as true to my experience of this as possible. And it's very possible that that experience will change and evolve over time, as I'm sure yours will. So I'm sharing this in the spirit of hopefully overhearing myself say something vaguely intelligent and inspiring, and also, to put this out there in such a way that you can be inspired by what you hear and to challenge it. Okay, so the first step of this is that everything has an exterior and an interior. And I'm going to represent that simply by a circle split into two. Okay, so everything that we know, that we can see, that we can measure, we'll put into the exterior. Okay, and everything that we can't measure, everything that maybe can be felt, that we can't measure in centimeters, that we can't hold, that we can't touch, that we can't see, goes into this bottom realm here. Now here is you. Okay, so we have part of us that we can see, we can touch, we can smell good, and that we recognize. And I'm going to refer to that as our small self, the small self, how other people see us. Jung might even refer to this as the persona. They're the thoughts we have about ourselves. They are the body that we encapsulate. They're the way in which we want to be seen in the world. In a way, it's like the clothing that we put on to show everyone that we're kind of normal and just like them. Now, underneath here is another part of ourselves. Is the part of ourselves that is our thoughts and our feelings, are those ideas and those motivations and those energies that drive us. And there's also those around us, right? So there might be our family, there might be our workforce, there might be the people we consider to be part of our world. And each one of those has, if you like, the things that we think we know about them, the things we can see, the things that they've expressed, the habits they show, the behaviors they show, but they also have their ideas, their thoughts, their inner world. They have everything going on that we have. Now, as we engage in a creative project of some kind, as we express ourselves in the world in a measurable and tangible way, maybe we start a business, or we're growing a business, or we begin to paint, or we build a home for our family, then our creative projects get branches, right? So I'm going to express all those things that we see in the world as an expression of us as the branches. Okay. Now, everything that these things come from, the very architecture of our society, the physical architecture, right? The things that we build around us are expressed from where? Where did they come from? Where did they come from? What was their originating source? Well, their originating source was an idea. It was an idea. It was an idea that sprang from somewhere, but not somewhere you can measure, right? The way Beethoven described where his music came from, where symphonies came from, he said they're in the air around him. All he had to do was listen, to stop and listen. But he couldn't pull the notes out of the air. They weren't physically around him. What he did have to do was master his body, master his hands, master his ability time and time and time again to hone himself around the music that he heard in the air around him and was able to express in the world. Now, what happens when we collaborate, when we join with other people? Well, we begin to have something of a forest, right? We begin to build a world which is co-created. We actually can't do this on our own. It's impossible to create anything or even to imagine anything in complete isolation and separation from the culture and the society that we've been part of. It's impossible to wake up in the morning and have a thought without it being shaped by, let's for example use Facebook, right? The technology that's been created, it's measurable, it's tangible, it's out there, you can see how many followers you've got. You can wake up in the morning and your thought can be shaped by, okay, what am I going to post on Facebook today? Okay, so thoughts are shaped by our external reality, what we've committed to, what we're expressing in the world. So similarly, all of that, where did Facebook originate from? Okay, it originated from a group of people who came up with the idea of how can we join people together in a network. So they came from a joining of imaginations, a joining of feelings, thoughts, ideas, which were then given expression in the world. Now, I'm going to argue a certain case here. You may agree or disagree with me. If this was the world that we're part of, where would you say we lean towards? Right? Do we lean towards that which is material, that which is expressed, that which we can measure, that which we can hold in our hands? Or do we lean towards that which is imagined, the idealistic, the feelings, the thoughts, the energy, the motivations that drive things? Well, to me, it's pretty clear that this way exceeds this. And so what's happening is we are seeing a world that is getting full of stuff. And what happens to a tree, right, which is all branches but no roots? It collapses, it falls over. And societies rise and collapse all the time, right? Just like trees grow in the forest and collapse all the time. It's actually necessary. Doesn't mean that materialism is necessarily a bad thing. It's necessary. We have to clothe ourselves. We have to eat. Our bodies have to survive and thrive. When I go to the Four Seasons Serengeti and I just see the pure wildness, you just think, thank God we've built a level of civilization to be able to separate ourselves from death every single day, right? And all of those ideas to develop civilization, they came from the external world, but then they turned into an idea that if I do this, we can protect ourselves in a certain way. So the foundations of materialism even come from this interior world. So where do we fit in all of this? And you know, in a world that we could say we could feel is going a little mad, it's going a little wild, it's in a world that is drawn towards the materialistic, where we wake up every day and think, well, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. Where do we go? What do we do? What we find is that our thoughts, our ideas, our imaginations hit a collective set of impasses. I actually trained to do a geography degree. As weird as that sounds, I painted furiously while I did a geography degree, but one of the things I learned in geography was this concept of iron pans, right? So iron pans are hard, impenetrable layers in the soil that roots cannot navigate, they can't push through, right? And this causes a real problem, right? This causes a real problem because it means all of these roots begin to stagnate, right? They can't grow, they can't thrive, they get caught in groundwater, which actually eventually kind of kills and stifles the roots, they decay. And at the same time, it seriously inhibits the growth of the tree, right? So we've got one kind of impasse here, which I'm going to call imaginal iron pans. Imaginal iron pans. Okay, they are layers in our imagination which we cannot see beyond, right? We can't see past. How are we going to get past this, right? Climate change. How are we going to get past it, right? World poverty. How are we going to get past it? The destruction and degradation of the environment in so many ways. How are we going to get past it? We have to imagine a way past it. Our collective survival depends on it, right? Similarly, when all of these branches, sometimes these branches can get so dense and so thick that we have this kind of covering, right? There are layers in the rainforest that get so dense and covered, it's pitch black, which means nothing young in the ground can grow, right? There's no light penetrating the leaves. Now, I'm going to use the term creative glass ceilings. Creative glass ceilings. These are where we need the breakthroughs in the technology. These are where we need the breakthroughs in how we organize, how we create new solutions, how we reorganize as a society to push through into what we hope will be a new and far better world. You see the current reality that we have, that we've defined for ourselves as not the blank canvas, but the partially completed canvas that we get to bring our creative works into, to push through, to build, literally build a better world, solve the problems that we currently have, and collectively push through the way we even see each other, which is profoundly flawed in certain ways. These things have to be pushed through so we can thrive together. So this external sphere here represents both a new way of imagining together and a new way of creating together. And what this does is it gives us kind of three planes to work with. There's the world we know, or the world that we came from, okay, so our originating world, where did we come from, our past. There's the world that we are currently in, and there's the world that we're going toward. So we've got three worlds. the world we came from, the world we're in, and the world that we're moving towards. In all of this, without wanting to make this too complex, but it's important that this is mentioned. Within this, we have things we know and we have things we don't know. So within our external world, there are things we know about it. There are things we've measured about it, but there are areas of the ocean that we know nothing about whatsoever. Outer space, right? We know very little about outer space. Even if you consider the sample population of data that we use to measure outer space, if you consider that outer space is infinite, then anything we measure means there's very little point in actually trying to make any sense of that data if we live in an infinite space. I'm throwing this at you because I want you to think about reality differently than you currently do. Because the world that we came from and the world that we're in, like each one of those spheres could also be called a paradigm. Right? A paradigm is a holding pattern of belief. It's a pattern that runs so deep that you don't even question it's there. You wake up permeated with a paradigm. You see a paradigm. You dream a paradigm. You breathe a paradigm. You act a paradigm every single day. And that paradigm is made up of, how do I see myself? How do I see others and the world? And how do I see what's possible? What's next? So what I would invite you to consider, just to set some context around why I'm getting you to use your imagination, why I'm getting you to use your creativity, is because by imagining and seeing new ways of being, not just separate from me, but with each other, we can actually break through our imaginal iron pans. We can break through and see ourselves completely differently. We can either see ourselves as Lewis the artist, maybe Lewis the struggling artist that's desperate to get his work out in the world, right? Small sense of me. Lewis the artist that needs to provide for his family. Lewis the artist that just bangs on about crazy things every now and again and is not even sure about whether it's making any sense or not. Or I can see myself as Lewis, part of this incredible ecosystem of thought, of being, of orchestrating a new reality whereby if I light up and I can bring the best of what I have, somehow, hopefully, I'm lighting you up and I'm lighting those up around you. Similarly, as we create together, right, so as we create from this place of imagination, we begin to push through our own barriers. You will experience resistance as you come up against these barriers. Individual, your own resistance, and collective resistance. That really can be felt. Right, so we have this interior resistance we have to break through, and the exterior resistance of the things that we might not necessarily agree with in our political spheres, our educational spheres, all of those systems that we've built up to educate our children and to police our world and to ensure war doesn't happen. All of these systems have come from the world that was, right? They are always going to be fallible. They're always going to fall over. You know, thank God for our education systems and our healthcare systems, because they've got us as far as we have got. But they need to evolve. They need to evolve. As surely as these trees are going to fall over and collapse into the ground that they came from, right? There has to be new growth all the time. So I would argue there's only two things we have in the face of massive disruption, breaking through our creative glass ceilings, breaking through our imaginal iron pans, and that is the use of our imagination in healthy ways, in consistent, practiced ways, but also the use of our creative ability. Not necessarily the creating of art, okay? If you want to create art, that's awesome. But the painting techniques and all that kind of stuff I'm showing you are not necessarily about creating art. They're about creating. expressing those things that are within you will enable you to ready yourself for the unknown, because we are collectively pushing up against the unknown, and that is scary, right? But it's scary and exciting as anything once you're prepared mentally, once you're prepared in your body, once you're prepared because you prepared your imagination, because you know you have a creative practice that you can bring to the world which draws upon all of this raw material, this full spectrum of human emotion, of human life experience, because we can bring that fully into this world that we so desperately want to make even better, to remember even maybe how it once was, but actually the real true nature of this is there's only one way forward, and that is forward together, including as much as we can of our own life experience and the best that we know of the entirety of the human story together. So I wanted to share this with you because using the imaginal practice to improve your sense of anxiety and improve your sense of stress is awesome, right? And it will do that because you'll end up pushing through your own imaginal iron pans, and you'll begin to get your whole body, mind and heart aligned with the idea that it's okay to push yourself to the point of, you know, the way I see creativity is like a series of mini deaths, right? It's not the most popular way of seeing it. It's incredibly enlivening and engaging. Don't get me wrong, it absolutely is. But the reason it is because it takes you to the edge of yourself. It takes you to the very edge of who you think you are, and takes you just a little bit beyond there, and then it brings you back again. That's why it's enlivening. It's because it's actually scary too. So by priming your whole being with a creative practice, like the soulscaping imaginal practice or the soulscaping creative practice, you are readying your mind, your heart and your body for the unknown, and you're making sense of it. You might even make art out of it, but more importantly, you'll be crafting a life and a workplace and a family that's in line with the authentic sense of you, not just the small sense of you, right? Because the truest sense of you came from here and from here. It came from realms beyond our current level of accepted understanding. Where do you think your thoughts, your dreams, your ideas, your imaginations, your desires, where do you think they all come from? They come from out here. And we're going to talk about that another time. But for me, the highest expression of who we are as human beings is to stay true to this here. And that's what creating and imagining will do for you.